It's F1's 75th anniversary, so I thought to celebrate it, I would annoy a lot of people by giving my top 10 greatest F1 drivers of all time. Now, this is all my personal opinion, and I know this conversation can get very heated for a lot of people in Formula One. So this is all my opinion. I am a loud one, just as everyone else is. So if they're your driver that you think's the GOAT isn't on here, don't get offended, even though you probably fucking will. I know how the F1 community is now, especially on fucking Twitter. But without hesitation, let's start off with number 10, which, if you know your F1 cars, you probably know who it is. It's Fernando Alonso. Even now, 2024, he's I know, not 2024, it's 2025 now. He's not had the best of starts to 2025, definitely not. But the level of consistency and longevity he has had, barring when he left the sport for 2 years after McLaren, his second McLaren stint, I should say, as my list falls off my leg. He is still, I still think he's a very good driver. He has always been up there. Apart from when he was at Minardi, he has dragged cars that should not be to the place they are. I like 2014 Ferrari. What he was able to do with some of that stuff in that car was something to behold. Same thing. 2012. I love the 2012 season, and one of the big parts of that is Alonso dragging that absolute dog of a Ferrari to this close to getting the championship, and I think he should have gotten that championship instead of Vettel, in my personal opinion. So that's why Alonso just sneaks onto this list. I was considering someone like Gilles Villeneuve for this list as well, just because of his pure skill. And, well, I mean, he was the first driver to do a lap on three wheels before Hamilton did. Unfortunately, that didn't end in a win. And his just sheer speed and skill of a car, from what people who have raced against him have said. But I thought, no, I'm going to go with my first pick, and I shall pick Alonso. So he is in at number 10. And number 9, a driver who I feel is criminally underrated, especially for the championships that he's gotten, which is 3, and that's Sir Jack Brabham. He is the only driver in Formula One history to win in a car bearing his own name, not just a race, a world championship bearing his own name, which is a very, very good feat, and that I guarantee that will never, ever, ever be repeated again, because Formula One is way too expensive now to be able to do something like that. I do believe he was also the first driver to win a championship in a rear-engined car in 1959, and he was still winning into his 40s. He was the first driver to win a race in 3 decades. Yes, he did it before Hamilton, because he won. Obviously, he won a championship in '59. He also won in the '60s, and he also won a race in the 1970s. So he definitely has a lot of pedigree here, and I think he is generally criminally underrated, because I generally don't know why. I don't know if it's because, well, we'll get into this when I get onto another driver from very early on. I just don't think that some of the earlier drivers get the recognition they deserve, apart from one, which we will get to at some point, I am sure. So that is number 9 on my list, Sir Jack Brabham. And another Sir coming in at number 8, Sir Jackie Stewart. 3 world titles, a big campaigner for safety, but that's not really about his racing. Stewart's one of those, I know for some reason, and I don't know why, a lot of Hamilton stands seems to have a problem with him. I don't really know why that is, and every time I've asked, I never really get a proper answer. So, if any, be reasonable, Hamilton stands. Just explain to me why some of you don't like Jackie Stewart. I personally don't know why that is. I think he's a pretty chill guy. And again, he won in distinct eras as well, because obviously, well, not really actually thinking about it, but he had the record for amount of wins at one point in his career, overtaking Jim Clark during his career, and again, was a big campaign of safety, and even then he'd still drive a car because, well, they knew there was a 2 out of 3 chance for they were going to die in that car. I think from that Grand Prix Killers documentary. Um, but F1 drivers, they are different human beings to the rest of us. They definitely are. And Stewart, he was a very solid driver, and he was so dependable. I think when the Cosworth engine was not exclusive to Lotus. Ken Advert put in a newspaper or something. It's just like, if you give me your money to get a Cosworth engine, I will guarantee Jackie drives a car, and that's where he got all of his titles, apart from one which he got with Matra, I believe, if I remember correctly. So yeah, Jackie Stewart coming in at number 8. He's still around in the paddock. I'm sure you've seen, and nice guy, and I do feel he was under. He got 3 titles at the end of the day as well. It's just a shame that he chose not to race his final race out of respect for one of my personal favourite drivers, Francois Sever, after his accident at Watkins Glen at the final race of 73. Now, moving on to number 7. I know this one is going to be extremely controversial. I will explain my reasoning. And that is Ayrton Senna, coming in at number 7. Now, I am not saying Senna was a bad driver. He is on my list of the GOATs for a reason. But I personally feel that Senna, especially after 2024, after it was the 30th anniversary of his passing, he is extreme. I personally feel Senna is extremely overrated. And I am one of the I am one of the people who prefer Alain Prost, who, as you can probably tell, is on this list higher up. This is not a knock at Senna. He is a very quick driver. He, on his day, or probably the quickest driver in his day, an exceptional racer. I just feel that this just instance, like 89 Suzuka was Prost's fault, but the most egregious one, 1990 Suzuka, just should have been thrown out of a championship for that, in my personal opinion. But, we have, races like Estoril 1985, which I think is his best race ever. Even exceeding Donington 93, which is another standout of his on his F1 resume. His pole lap in Monaco in 88, where he outqualified Prost by, it was 1.5 seconds, which, yes, in those cars was not very hard to do, but in a car that was the same as Prost, and Prost was, again, at probably the peak of his career, or maybe just about to drop off, he put that lap on Prost, and, well, we all know how Senna versus Prost went. But I just feel that with Senna, it's not a dick, I personally feel that other drivers are better than him, and a lot cleaner than him, which I will have to explain one of my reasonings when we get later on, of which I assume some of you who do watch F1 probably know who that is about. But so Senna's at number 7. So who are the other 6 drivers that I think about in Senna? My number 6 pick is Fangio. Now Fangio has a stat that I really like. He won 4 out of his 5 titles with different teams. Again, never ever been done before, and I highly doubt it will ever be done again. Because he won his 4 out of his 5 titles for Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Mercedes, and Ferrari. Pretty stacked list of teams there in terms of not just Formula 1, just motorsport in general. And his nickname's El Maestro as well. Probably the standout moment for him is 1957 German Grand Prix, where he had a pit stop, and the wheel nut fell under the car, which obviously that's going to cost you time. He still won. I think he still won the race after that, if I remember, if memory serves me correctly from looking at the results of that sheet, of that race, I should say. So, he is one of the best, and I'm sure some drivers say he's still one of the best. I think Jackie Stewart still says to this day that Fangio was the best F1 driver. And again, 1950s F1, very, very different, obviously, because you could give your car to your teammate and you'd end up scoring half points. And since and fastest laps, they weren't measured to like the milliseconds that we do now. So sometimes drivers will be getting like a third of a point, fourth of a point. I think at one point there was one 6th or 7th of a point given to drivers at the British Grand Prix. I can't remember how many drivers got the same fastest lap, but you know, even with the madness that was the 1950s in Formula One, El Maestro here still got the job done. And yeah, I think because he retired at the end of '57, and obviously F1 started in 1950. So that's 5 out of 7 times. 5 out of 7 times when he was on the grid. I really hope I've done really good maths there. He won the championship. So, and if F1 had started a couple years before, he might have won a little bit more. So that is Fangio coming at number 6. Now, moving on to number 5, that is Alain Prost for me. The only French Formula One world champion. And that's probably going to be the case unless Ocon and Gasly get better cars from Haas and Alpine. So why have I put Prost ahead of Senna? I think Prost was the better driver, definitely. He was not the quickest of the two. He was definitely much better in terms of racecraft and race pace. I think a prime example is his 1986 season. He had no business winning that title, but because of his racecraft and also both the Williams drivers tripping over each other, he was always in for points, and he got it. And I think 86 is his best season because of that. And even 93 probably not the best because he just turned up to that car because that car was, if that car was in the hands of Senna in 93, that Williams, Prost had no chance. But the quality of the drivers that Prost was up against during his peak, even when he's at his Renault, he was up against guys like René Arnoux, Keke Rosberg, Michele Alboreto, Nigel Mansell's, Nelson Piquet, which I know that's still a trigger word for a lot of people. I don't blame you. And obviously Senna came around later as well. Niki Lauda as well. Quality drivers he was up against, and he thrashed a lot of them. There's also an interesting stat that this is a hypothetical, so this is a hypothetical. If F1 had still had the same point system that we do today, so 25 for a win to 1 point for 10th place, Prost would have had a clean slate against his teammates and would have 7 titles instead of the 4 that he has, and he definitely should have more than 4 titles if it wasn't for the drop scoring system in 1988, because if you look at the stats, he actually scored more points than Senna in that year, but because of the drop scores, Senna got the championship. And also, he probably should have won 83 as well, but I think Renault fumbled the ball with that and blamed Prost for it. So I think Prost is not underrated. I feel that he's in, I wouldn't even say the shadow of Senna. I just think he's underappreciated, I think is probably the best term for it. That's how I would have described him. Excuse me. So that is my reasoning for putting Prost ahead of Senna. So if this has annoyed a lot of you, I'm not apologising. I just gave you my reasoning, and give me your reasonings in the comments. This is what this video is for discussion and opinions, because I know those terms are not allowed on the internet anymore. So coming in at number 4 is one of my personal favourite drivers, Niki Lauda. The reason he's so high up for me is because he won championships in 2 very distinct eras. Because he retired at the end of 79, because he said he didn't want to drive in circus anymore, which a little bit based, I'm not going to lie. And so he got his 2 championships in 75 and 77. And then, at the end of 79, came back and it was completely different. We had the turbo, that was the height of the turbo era. And he played Prost at his own game. And I think 84, and when he was Prost's teammate, I think he taught Prost a lot, which is why I like these guys quite a bit. But this isn't about my personal favourites, because that is a list for another day. But I think the reason I've put Lauda ahead of Prost is just because of he won in two very distinct eras, and he had two comebacks. Obviously, that one in 1976 after that horrific crash in the German Grand Prix, and then he came back in '82, still showed he had it, got a third world title, didn't do a lot in '85, and just said, "Yeah, it's Prost's turn to have a go." And he said Prost would get a title. Did take it? It did take him. We took him, to 85 to 1. Actually, no. At the end of '84, he said Prost would get it next year. Lauda's a prophet, and I do miss him very much. Sorely missed personality in the paddock, I feel, because no bullshit with him. Absolutely no bullshit. So coming in at number 3, Lewis Hamilton. Of course, I picked him in as my list falls off my leg again, but I know my top 3 now. Now, I could have put him at number 1, and I would tell the reason I didn't is because if he wins, a championship in another rule set, I do think he will go ahead of at least the guy I have in second place. Maybe not the guy in first, but I will get to him when I get to him. But I still have Hamilton so high up. I mean, what do I need to say about Hamilton that hasn't already been said? 7-time world champion. If you ask some people, he's an 8-time world champion. If you ask me, he's a 9-time world champion. That's sure to annoy a lot of people because I still somehow get hate for that. In my small little corner of the internet, I feel. And 103 race wins. Was it 104? I can't quite remember, but most race wins in F1 history, most poles in F1 history, 7, 8, 9, however many championships you want them to have. In the stat book, it is 7, but I say 9 to defend you Hamilton stands, so don't hate me. You probably are, because he's not number 1. But, we'll see. If he does win a title for Ferrari, I think he is going up again. He's going ahead of the guy I have in second place, but at the moment, he's not done that yet. So if you're seeing this video in 2 or 3 years' time and he's won a championship, you don't understand how time works. But Hamilton, he was one of my favourite drivers after Schumacher. Won a title for McLaren. He got a good stretch of titles with Mercedes, of which, I'm going to be honest, Vettel didn't. I think looking back on it, Vettel never really stood a chance with him. I think now, looking back with quite a bit of hindsight, but Vettel's still getting a good run for his money. And I don't, and that 2020 season, it's got to be that or 2015, probably his best seasons, maybe. And yeah, I don't really think there needs to be said about Hamilton. He's statistically the greatest. So, yeah, I don't think there's a lot to say about Hamilton, really. Do I just have to say his name? Anyway, now this is moving on to number 2, which I might get a lot of shit for, I don't know. Second place is my personal favourite F1 driver of all time. Oh my god, shock horror. A person can separate their personal favourites from the GOATs. Wow. What a world we live in. But yeah, on a serious note, now, I know a lot of people are going to say, Michael Schumacher's dirty driver. I know they will point to Adelaide 94, which I don't really think is his fault, because Damon could have waited, but he didn't. So he did have an opportunity. Hill had an opportunity to do it, and I think in hindsight, Hill said he should have waited, but he didn't. F 97, that was not premeditated, like I know some people have said to me. I think that was just a moment of desperation. The one I will not argue against is Monaco in 2006. I will not argue with that. That was him trying to keep pole position, and he got punished for it. He got sent to the back of a grid. But anyway, this is a guy who brought Ferrari back to the top. It's the same thing with Hamilton. He brought Mercedes to the top. They both of these guys rallied around. They got a team and rallied around them, which is why they are number 2 and number 3 for me. But the reason I put Schumacher ahead is I do think he's got a little bit more of that edge when it comes to his driving. Like he's got a little bit more of that. I will push the limits, similar to like Max Verstappen. Like there was that famous like Schumacher chop where he would just cut across cut across the opposite side of a grid at the start. You know, I think I'm not to say Hamilton doesn't have that edge because he obviously does. You know, he's a 7-time champ as well, or 8 if you ask him a load of Hamilton stands, or 9 times if you ask me. But anyway, this is about Schumacher. You know, so many outstanding moments for Schumacher. Same thing with Hamilton as well, which I probably should have mentioned. Actually, we'll go back to Hamilton and list some of his great drives. Sao Paulo 2021, Silverstone 2008, Fuji 2007. That's a really, really good drive. I do agree with someone I used to interact with a few bits of time on Twitter. That's probably more impressive than Silverstone. What else what other standout ones were there for Hamilton? Oh, it's quality lap in Singapore in 2018. But moving back to Schumacher, 96 at Spain. Just yeah. You know, he got the title done. Finally got that title done in Suzuka in 2000. That 4 stopper in France 2004. He won the title in July in 2002, which I think is the earliest the driver's ever gotten it. Unless Mansell got that in 92, but I don't think he did. And I'm trying to whack off. You know what? I'll give him Valencia 2012 as well. Oh, Monaco 2012 as well. Monaco 2012. That was the old Schumacher in there still. That lap. This is a shame what happened at Spain the previous race. So, yeah. But the driver, I think, who is the GOAT is, well, here he is, Jim Clark. I think Jim Clark is not only, in my personal opinion, the greatest F1 driver of all time, he's just one of the best drivers in general. I think the stat for Clark I like the most is he won the F1 World Title and the Indy 500 in the same year, 1965. And it is such a shame that he was taken from us far too soon in that F2 race at Hockenheim in 68, because I would have liked to seen Clark driving when aerodynamics was coming into the fray, because when he died, it was just about to come in, and you know, he had such a smooth driving style. Basically, you'd put him in anything, and he would win. Like he won touring cars, he won Tasman Series, like Australian Formula One, back in the day. You know, he won F2 races, I'm pretty sure as well. Like he stuck this guy in anywhere, and he won. And if it wasn't for some reliability issues, he probably wouldn't have won a couple more titles. Obviously his first one in 63 as well. But I do think that in him skipping Monaco to do Indy in 65, which was his third attempt, even in his first attempt in 63, he got second, which Alonso didn't get that in his first Indy start. That's actually because he retired. And then when he tried it was it 2019? Was it 2018? He didn't even fucking qualify whenever it was, you know? So, yeah. And I know some people don't understand how good Clark was now, but I would recommend watching the Grand Tour segment they did on him, because that was a really, really good documentary. Because, you know, not documentary, good part of the Grand Tour, because it just interviewed a load of other like mechanics that were with him. You know, they'd always talk about, you know, there was hardly any wear on Clark's car because of the way he drove, because it was so smooth, which you had to drive those cars smooth back then, because otherwise it'd be very hard to get the speed back up if you drove roughly. So yeah, that is why reason Clark is my greatest F1 driver of all time. So as in this probably controversial video, because when you talk about the GOAT, of which I will say this at the end of the video, there is no definitive GOAT in F1. This is just my personal opinion on who I think is vote, because there never ever can be a definitive GOAT in F1. Why? Too many variables, and it's probably a topic for another time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, feel free to like it. Disliked it if you disliked it. And if you like this video, check out some of my other content on this channel. And if you like my other content on this channel, feel free to make that red subscribe button go to grey. And I shall see you all in the next one. Goodbye.